The human mind possesses a devastating flaw. We judge the entire world by a standard we never apply to ourselves. First, we walk through life wearing an invisible armor of self justification, carrying a blade of sharp judgment, ready to strike at the flaws, the failures, and the missteps of those around us. We believe that by pointing out a mistake, we are correcting the course. We believe that by damning another human being, we are standing on the side of truth. But psychology reveals a terrifying reality. Criticism is a dangerous boomerang. It is a weapon that always returns to strike the hand that threw it. When you launch an attack on another person's dignity, you are not changing their behavior. You are triggering an ancient evolutionary survival mechanism. The moment a person feels criticized, their ego goes into lockdown. Huh? Their brain experiences the attack exactly like a physical threat. Blood rushes away from the areas responsible for logical reasoning and floods into the centers of defense. They do not look at their mistake, they look at your aggression. They do not think about how to improve. They construct a fortress of self defense, inventing reasons, excuses, and justifications to prove that they were right and that you are the enemy. This is the tragic illusion of condemnation. It tricks us into feeling powerful for a brief, fleeting moment while systematically destroying our influence, our relationships, and our peace of mind. Dale Carnegie understood this fundamental law of human nature deeper than anyone else. He observed that sharp criticism breeds a deep, burning resentment that can rankle for decades, outlasting the very memory of the offense that caused it. Resentment does not dissolve with time. It grows in the dark, poisoning the well of human connection. When you damn another person, you are planting a seed of bitterness that will eventually bear fruit in your own life. Think of the legendary figures of history who held absolute power. The ones who truly mastered the art of leading human beings did not achieve greatness by breaking spirits. They achieved it by conquering their own impulse to condemn. They realized that any fool can criticize, condemn, and complain, and indeed, most fools do. But it takes true character, immense self control, and emotional maturity to be understanding and forgiving. The mask of criticism is often worn by those who seek to hide their own deep seated insecurities. By pulling others down, the critic attempts to elevate themselves, creating a false, temporary sense of superiority. But the high is short lived, leaving behind a trail of broken trust and isolated hearts. If you want to change people, if you want to influence behavior, and if you want to build an unshakable empire of respect, you must first throw away the blade. You must look past the surface error and seek to understand the hidden motives, the unseen pressures, and the silent struggles that drive human actions. To understand all is to forgive all. True power does not lie in the ability to destroy someone with a sentence. True power is the rare cinematic strength required to hold your tongue, master your ego, and extend a hand of genuine, empathetic insight. Okay? The moment he dropped the weapon of judgment, he realized that true dominance over human hearts begins with absolute control over one's own pride. The transformation begins when we pull back the curtain on human history and witness the exact moment a catastrophic failure of judgment became a masterclass in human behavior. Consider the early life of Abraham Lincoln. Long before he guided a fractured nation through its darkest hour, Lincoln was not a man of gentle patience. He was a fierce, biting critic. As a young man in the state of Illinois, he didn't just notice the blunders of his rivals, he openly ridiculed them. He wrote anonymous letters and satirical poems, publishing them in local newspapers to ensure the sting of his judgment was felt publicly leaving his targets humiliated and exposed. He wore the mask of criticism like a badge of intellectual superiority, believing his sharp wit made him powerful. Okay. But the laws of human nature are absolute, and a reckoning was inevitable. In the autumn of 1842, Lincoln targeted a vain, fiery politician named James Shields. He published an anonymous, mocking letter that cut Shields to the quick. The entire town laughed, but Shields was consumed by a blinding, venomous rage. He tracked down the anonymous author, confronted Lincoln, and demanded a duel to the death. Lincoln, who despised dueling, found himself backed into a corner where his reputation, his future, and his very life hung in the balance. On a bleak sandbar across the Mississippi River, the two men stood face to face, prepared to kill each other over a few sentences of bitter criticism. At the final second, seconds before the steel could clash, onlookers intervened and stopped the madness. But the psychological impact on Lincoln was permanent. That terrifying morning on the riverbanks changed the course of his life forever. Mm. He realized that a single word of condemnation could trigger a chain dot reaction of destruction that no amount of logic could stop. From that day forward, Lincoln made a sacred vow never to write an insulting letter, never to ridicule a fellow human being, and never to criticize anyone for their shortcomings. Decades later, during the height of the American Civil War, this psychological mastery was put to the ultimate test. The Battle of Gettysburg had just concluded, and the Confederate Army under General Lee was retreating, trapped against the raging, uncrossable waters of the Potomac River. Lincoln saw a golden opportunity to end the bloody war right then and there. He sent frantic, absolute orders to General Meade to attack the trapped enemy immediately. It was a flawless military strategy. Victory was within their grasp. But Meade hesitated. He delayed, he made excuses, and he completely ignored the president's command. The floodwaters receded, and Lee's army escaped to safety, ensuring the war would drag on for years, costing hundreds of thousands of lives. Lincoln was paralyzed with grief and fury. He sat at his desk, his heart burning with an overwhelming urge to crush Meade with words. He wrote a letter that stripped away all politeness, pouring his raw, unedited condemnation onto the paper, accusing Meade of a catastrophic failure of duty. Yet after Lincoln died, that letter was found among his private papers, unsigned and unsent. Why? Because before he could seal the envelope, Lincoln looked out the window and forced himself to step into Meade's shoes. He realized that it was easy for him, sitting in the quiet safety of the White House, to command an assault. But if he had been on the battlefield, surrounded by the blood, the screams, and the psychological trauma of a brutal war, perhaps he too would have hesitated. He knew that sending the letter would give him a brief moment of emotional relief, but it would also make Meade defensive, break his spirit, ruin his usefulness as a general, and force him to resign in disgrace. Lincoln chose to master his pride, hide his judgment, and swallow his resentment because he understood that a leader's true job is to heal, not to destroy. Lincoln, looking down at the unsent letter, he understood that the ultimate test of authority is the strength to bury your own rage so another man can find his footing. The psychological mechanism that Lincoln mastered is a universal law that governs every interaction you will ever have. When we peel back the layers of human motivation, we find a truth that Dale Carnegie emphasized. Above all else, every human being on this planet desires, above almost everything, a sense of importance. We crave validation, recognition, and the feeling that our existence matters. This desire is not a shallow flaw. It is a deep, driving evolutionary need. It is the fuel behind the greatest achievements in human history, from building empires to creating timeless art. Okay. Now consider what happens when you apply the blade of criticism. You are not merely correcting a detail or pointing out a logical flaw. You are mounting a direct, devastating assault on that person's core sense of importance. You are telling them, explicitly or implicitly, that they have failed, that they are inadequate, or that their judgment is flawed. The human ego will protect its sense of importance at all costs. It is an instinct as fierce and reflexive as pulling your hand away from a burning flame. When you criticize someone, their psychological defenses instantly crystallize. They do not hear your advice, they only feel the pain of their deflated pride. Even if your criticism is entirely accurate, even if your logic is flawless, the truth does not matter when the ego is wounded. The person you are condemning will instantly shift their focus to protecting their own dignity. They will rewrite the narrative in their mind, casting themselves as the misunderstood victim and you as the aggressive villain. They will dig their heels in, becoming even more stubborn, even more committed to the very behavior you wanted them to change. Okay? This is why the habit of damning others is a form of social suicide. It creates a toxic friction in your relationships, your workplace, and your family. The short lived gratification of being right, of showing someone their place, comes at an astronomical cost. You trade a lifetime of loyalty, cooperation, and genuine respect for a fleeting moment of hollow superiority. The resentment you plant in their chest remains there, a silent poison waiting for the right moment to surface. Okay? To break this destructive cycle, you must undergo a profound shift in perspective. You must train yourself to look past the surface level mistake and ask a fundamental psychological question. Why did they do this? Behind every error, behind every frustrating action, lies a complex web of hidden motives, unseen pressures, personal background, and silent struggles. Perhaps they were exhausted. Perhaps they were operating under fear or a desperate need to prove themselves. When you force yourself to understand the hidden forces driving another person's behavior, your judgment naturally dissolves into empathy. You begin to realize that if you had inherited their genetics, experienced their upbringing, faced their specific pressures, and lived through their unique trials, you would very likely have made the exact same mistake. This realization is the birth of true social intelligence. It transforms you from a rigid judge into a profound observer of human nature. By choosing to analyze rather than attack, you cultivate an aura of rare emotional maturity that draws people to you, making them lower their defenses willingly because they know they are safe in your presence. The moment you stop trying to fix people and begin trying to understand them, the invisible walls of resistance instantly crumble to dust. This shift in perspective does not mean you ignore errors or accept mediocrity. Rather, it means you unlock the hidden architecture of human influence. To truly change behavior without trigger, you must replace the blunt instrument of condemnation with the sharp precision of sincere appreciation. This is the ultimate secret of human relations. The deepest principle in human nature is the craving to be appreciated. It is an aching, unceasing hunger that every soul carries, yet it is rarely satisfied. Okay? Most people walk through life starved for validation, receiving nothing but a constant stream of judgment and correction from those around them. When you become the rare individual who can satisfy that hunger with honest, heartfelt appreciation, you gain an almost supernatural leverage. However, you must understand the vital difference between appreciation and flattery. Flattery is cheap, shallow, and selfish. It is merely telling the other person exactly what they want to hear. to get what you want from them. It is teeth deep, insincere, and ultimately toxic. True appreciation, on the other hand, comes from the heart out. It requires you to step outside of your own ego, observe another person with deep attention, and discover their true hidden strength. It means noticing the extra effort they put into a project, the quiet loyalty they show under pressure, or the small, unprompted acts of kindness they perform when they think no one is watching. When you voice that specific, honest appreciation, you are doing something revolutionary. You are reinforcing their sense of importance. You are validating their worth as a human being. The psychological impact of this approach is staggering. While criticism forces a person to defend their flaws, sincere appreciation inspires them to live up to the high standard you have recognized in them. Now, think about a time when someone genuinely praised a hidden strength in you. It didn't make you complacent, it filled you with a surge of energy to perform even better. You wanted to prove that their belief in you was entirely justified. By shifting your focus from what people do wrong to what they do right, you flip the script of human behavior. You stop trying to manipulate people from the outside and begin inspiring them to change from the inside. Okay, this is the velvet glove that conceals an unshakable power. When you lead with friendliness, empathy, and appreciation, you disarm the most hostile cynics. You create an environment where mistakes are viewed not as crimes to be punished, but as opportunities for collective growth. People will work harder, sacrifice more, and display fierce loyalty not because they fear your judgment, but because they cherish your approval. You stop being a critic who tears down structures and become a kingmaker who builds people up. By lifting the burden of condemnation from those around you, you simultaneously liberate yourself from the heavy, exhausting armor of constant judgment, unlocking a profound level of peace, charisma, and undeniable influence. Okay. By shining a light on their hidden worth, he realized he no longer needed to demand respect. They were giving him their loyalty willingly. The final realization of this psychological journey is the ultimate liberation of your own mind. When you drop the mask of criticism, you are not doing it merely as a strategic favor to others. You are doing it to rescue yourself from a self-imposed prison. To live a life of constant condemnation is to live in a state of perpetual psychological warfare. Every time you scan your environment for flaws, every time you fuel your mind with irritation over another person's incompetence, you are injecting a slow, steady stream of stress hormones into your own nervous system. You become a prisoner of the very negativity you broadcast to the world. The true master of human relations understands that conquering this instinct requires an intentional daily practice of what Dale Carnegie called living in daytime compartments. It means shutting the iron doors on past resentments and refusing to let future tough anxieties dictate how you treat the people standing in front of you right now. It requires the immense quiet discipline to catch yourself in the exact moment a sharp, critical remark rises to your lips and to ask yourself, what is the nobler motive here? Again, by appealing to a person's higher self, by treating them as the individual they are capable of becoming, dot, rather than the flawed person they might be acting like. Today, you perform an act of emotional alchemy. You give them a fine reputation to live up to. This is the profound secret that separates the mediocre critic from the world-class leader. The critic looks at a broken world and adds to its bitterness. The leader looks at a broken world, masters their own ego, and builds an empire of influence on the foundation of human understanding. As you move forward from this moment, Carry this truth with you like an unshakable shield. The next time someone blunders, the next time an employee fails, a partner forgets, or a friend disappoints you, remember Abraham Lincoln standing on that bleak, frozen, raw riverbank. Right? Remember that your words have the power to wound a soul for a lifetime or to lift it to new heights of excellence. Choose the path of character. Choose to be the person who understands, who forgives, and who genuinely appreciates. When you break the mirror of judgment and look at humanity through the lens of empathy, the world stops being a battlefield of conflicting egos and transforms into a space of limitless potential. Your influence will expand, your relationships will deepen, and you will unlock a supreme cinematic confidence that no amount of criticism could ever destroy. Can. As the final echo of judgment faded into silence, he stepped forward into the world, finally free to lead with the quiet, absolute authority of a master